Hi, I'm Ron Huxley, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I want to teach you a little bit about how to use my new book, The Complete Parenting Toolkit, Proven Strategies for Balancing Love and Limits. Now, did you know this is a very thin book? There's only 67 pages, and the reason for that is this is not designed to be a book that you read. This is designed to be a book that you use. This is a toolkit, and I want to go through some simple things that you can use, and I'm going to provide more of these on a daily basis. But today we're going to look at the emergency toolkit. It's on page 7. The emergency toolkit for what to do when you need help now. For most of us as parents, particularly if a book like this, you need specific answers for specific problems that are going on in your family today. And this is what this toolkit is about, how to help you find immediate results. Again, this is not a book full of stories or vignettes or case examples. Those are great, and I've read and I've even written other books on this with this type of style of writing, but you don't have time to read a 200-300 page book. This is a very small book, focus on tools, focus on specific problems, and what are those answers that you can try. Now, just as a caveat, when you're going through the book, The Parenting Toolkit, you can't consider the tools to be magical wands. Right, a magical wand is something you wave over your head or your child's head and everything changes. Well, that isn't going to happen. There's no miracles in this situation. But it will be miraculous in the way that you can change your home from wild to mild and create a calm home within 24 hours by simply focusing on specific tools in your toolbox. Okay? Tools in your toolbox is why it's called the Complete Parenting Toolkit. So let's look at the emergency toolkit when you need help now. First one is going to be take a breath, right? So on page 48 of the book, there is a tool called removing yourself from the situation, right? So this is part of the emergency toolkit for what to do when you need help now. The first step is take a breath, and that's going to be removing yourself from the situation. Let me just read it to you very quickly. This is for all ages, predominantly for teenagers. I think most of the conflicts we have as parents is with teenagers, and it's about high limits. We'll talk about the high limits and high love later. But for today, I want to focus on specifically how to de-escalate a very volatile situation. So removing yourself from the situation is a good tool for parents who have reached their maximum frustration tolerance. Okay, your maximum frustration tolerance. Parents might consider this tool a timeout for parents, right? Really, most timeouts are for you. You give kids timeouts, which is probably the only tool most of us know how to use. We grew up probably with spanking, or maybe use timeout, or it was used on you, or you maybe take away like a cell phone usage. That's the basic limitations to our toolbox. That's the only tools we have. It's like trying to fix everything in your house with only a hammer. It's just not going to work very effectively. You need a full toolbox with a lot of tools. So when you have reached your maximum frustration tolerance, you give yourself a timeout. Taking care of children is a very stressful job in the best of circumstances. When parents feel their blood pressure rising, they should tell the child what they are feeling, nicely of course, and excuse themselves from the situation. Let the child know what you are doing so they don't become anxious about being abandoned. This is removing yourself from the situation, which is page 48 in my toolkit. So let's chat a little more about that. The reality is that parenting is very difficult. I think a lot of times we have this expectation that parenting should be easy, or we expect that certain things will kids will just know, you can reason with them and they will understand your reasoning. But really what just happens is we just keep lecturing them over and over and over again. After a while, they just blah, blah, blah. They don't actually listen to what you say anymore, right? So when you get in this big power struggle, you feel like your blood pressure is rising, you've reached your maximum frustration level, it's time to maybe take yourself out of the equation so that cooler heads will prevail. Now, I know when you're hot and heavy, you want to deal with that problem right there and then. But this is going to require some self-control, particularly in these emergency situations when you need help now. In those situations, you're going to want to remove yourself from the situation. Maybe 5 minutes. You may just go get a drink of water. You may just go in the other room. You may take a quick little walk around the living room or outside or around the block, and then come back with a cooler head that can prevail. It'll give you a little more opportunity. Maybe you can actually grab the book in your bedroom if you take a 2-minute timeout, read up some emergency stuff, remind yourself about removing yourself from the situation, and then say, okay, good. Here's what I'm going to do when I get back in there to deal with this difficult moment. So in these moments, remove yourself from the situation allows you to calm down and to think about the situation in a more rational way so that you can deal with the problem that's going on, right? Otherwise, you're getting controlled by your emotion. You're getting controlled by the child who knows how to manipulate you. He knows which buttons to push. And oftentimes you're talking about problem A and they're bringing up problem C and B, C, D, E, and on. And next thing you know, you're fighting about problem D and you've lost track of what problem A was. This is another great tool in the parenting toolkit is the broken record technique, where you simply say the same thing repeatedly, like a broken record, until that is actually understood, right? It's a way to stand your ground. So remove yourself from the situation will help you deal with that problem in the moment. The second emergency tool that you're going to use is timeout, time in. Everyone's familiar with timeout. It's a universally used alternative to spanking. That's kind of the swing of our parents that's happened in society. We've gone from using spanking to timeout. Well, for some kids, particularly kids who've gone through early life trauma or difficult life situations or have issues around abandonment, those kids are going to actually be re-traumatized as a result of timeout. So timeout isn't always the most effective tool. It really is for parents anyway, I believe. It allows you to cool down. It's kind of another version of remove yourself from the situation. And then allows you and the child to work things out. A lot of times parents will say, I want you to go to your room and you're going to stay in there until you realize what you did wrong, and you're going to come back out here and you're going to tell me what you did wrong. Well, they can give you all kind of lip service, but the reality is that they are just going to tell you what you want to hear so they can get past the conflict and then move on. Some kids, particularly very oppositional defiant kids, are going to go in that room and maybe destroy the room or just plot revenge on you or a sibling that they just take it out on them later. So when timeout doesn't work, you have to do something called time in. And so let me read you time in. This is on page 26 of Discipline and Behavior Management. So a time in is used immediately after the timeout tool. It provides the educational component to what is basically a punishment-only method. That's timeout, punishment. Time in instructs the child as to what behavior the parent expects from the child. During the time in, the parent sits down face-to-face with the child and restates the reason they were sent to timeout. You're not asking them, why did you go into timeout? They don't know, or they don't care, or they're just going to say whatever you want them to say so that they can move on. But you're going to tell them why they got put into timeout. And then simply restate the reason for the timeout, and then state the appropriate expected behavior. Complete the time in tool by giving the child a hug or a soft pat on the back. So this is time in. This is our second tool we're going to talk about for today. And then a time in is the educational component. You put the child in timeout where there's no education because of just punishment. Just get away from me. Just go in there. I can't look at you right now. And then we bring them back in, and then we tell them the reason you were in timeout was X, Y, and Z. And what I expect you to be able to do in the future is A, B, and C. Is that understood? You can ask them to repeat it, right? What did I say? And we have to say it again. What I said was, the reason you went into timeout is X, Y, and Z, and what I want you to do when you come back is A, B, and C. Now repeat that to me. What did I say? You said A, B, and C. That's great. That's what I want you to do. And we're going to start practicing that, right? That's what I expect. And then you're going to reassure them with a pat on the back or a hug or a high five, which actually is another parenting tool called high fives. And then that builds that reassurance and reconnection, right? It's the connection that ultimately is driving this. That's what the high limits is about. High limits is a connection, high limits is structure. So we want to have both high structure and high connection, because when you are connected to someone, you're less likely to want to do something wrong that will hurt that person's feelings or make them disappointed in you. It's a very powerful tool, right? It's not shaming, it's a sense of their own conscience development. And so it's necessary in children, particularly those oppositional defiant kids, that we get into. So just to review, the emergency toolkit that we're using here in my book, The Complete Parenting Toolkit, is we're going to take a breath by removing ourselves from the situation. We can also use timeout with time in, put those two together, a timeout then a time in. And we also, to repeat a broken record, we already talked about that. We talked about high fives, which is reassurance and connection. So we've got like 4 or 5 tools that we just used in just a few minutes to help us deal with something in a very difficult situation. Whatever it is, young kids, older kids, these tools will work in an emergency situation that allow you to calm and de-escalate a difficult circumstance. So take a look at my book, The Complete Parenting Toolkit, proven strategies for balancing love and limits. And I'm gonna do something crazy. If you buy my book, which is only $9.99 on Amazon, I'm gonna give you a $199 course. It's actually a program called the Better Behavior Chart Program, excuse me. And this program outlines the scientific, neurologically based method that I use for dealing with the most problematic behaviors. Guaranteed it will work on any child. Now, I hate behavior charts. It is a tool, but I particularly don't like them. And I explain in this behavior program why they don't work and what to do instead. It's a scientifically proven method based on positive psychology and behavioral analysis. The Better Behavior Chart Program. You can find my book and the course on my site at familyhealer.tv. It's familyhealer.tv, and you go there, you buy the book, and then you simply go to chapter 4. You find the first word of the tool in chapter 4, and you use that word as your discount code on the Better Behavior Chart Program at the $199 value for only $9.99. And then you get that course and the book together. Guaranteed this will solve all the problems going on in your home and really turn your home from wild to mild. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen.